Hi, thank you for joining me for another chapter of By the Book. Today we're going to look at 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel, as you know, is continuation of the book of Samuel. We broke into two, 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel. 1 Samuel began with the dedication of a boy named Samuel by his mom. God is going to take that boy, allow him to grow, and develop him into a wonderful man, a good prophet who is going to judge the nation of Israel. At the end of his life, as things start to go south pretty bad, and he is now judging the nation of Israel, the people of Israel do not have confidence, not in him, but they don't have confidence in his sons. His sons have grown up and they do not have the character of their father. As a result, they've lost confidence in him, so they said, "We would like a king like everybody else." And Samuel cries out to God, said, "What do I do?" God said, "Give them what they want. They demand a king. Tell them what's expected. Tell them what's going to happen, and then give them a king. Anoint Saul as king." Saul starts out very well. He has everything that's necessary. He's everything the people are looking for. He's tall, he's strong, he's handsome. He unifies the people. They get behind him, but he then begins to make bad decisions. As he makes those bad decisions, he becomes fearful. As he becomes fearful, he becomes more afraid of what the people think and what the people say than what God thinks. So he stops obeying God and he starts obeying the people. This is going to cost him. Eventually, it costs him not only the kingdom, but it will cost him his own life. Prior to that event where he loses his life happening, God says to Samuel, "I'm going to remove Saul as king. Go and anoint the one that I have for you as king." And he anoints the young lad, the shepherd boy David. David is given the opportunity to grow and grow up. And as he is arguably a teenager, the Philistines are engaged in battle with the nation of Israel. Saul is the king, and he's afraid. The nation of Israel is cowering because the Philistines have a giant named Goliath. This is how you're going to find the introduction to David. David then says, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? He's blaspheming the nation of Israel. This can't stand." So he takes 5 smooth stones and his sling, steps out against the giant with no additional armor, and he takes a stone and he soundly crushes the skull of the giant. The giant falls, and then David takes Goliath's sword and cuts off his own head. A terrible event, but a great result for the nation of Israel. One of the things that you now see happen is that Saul sees that the popularity is now shifting to David. People are singing songs about him. In his jealousy, he has brought David into the kingdom to help him, and he's a musician. David is a musician, so he's actually singing songs. And God has allowed for this spirit to trouble Saul, and David, when he sings and plays music, it settles Saul somewhat. But eventually, Saul, in his jealousy, becomes outraged and tries to kill David on multiple occasions. David flees for his life. We then see the tragic events of Saul's rejection. He's eventually killed by an Amalekite. Terrible things happen, and David is now anointed king. When David is anointed king, this is about where 2 Samuel picks up. The first act, it seems, of David is he mourns forcefully for King Saul. He's now crying out loud and in public, and he's lamenting the fact that that Saul has been killed. As a result, the people see the heart of David, and the heart of David now helps to unify the people. As things progress, the army then solidifies. There are some bad things that take place, Joab and Abner and so forth. But now we're going to be introduced to a life-changing event. David now wants to build a house for God. He said, "We've unified the people. This is a great way to unify them. We're going to bring the Ark of the Covenant, where the presence of God should be, and we're going to bring it into a centralized house of worship." So he conquers Jerusalem, renames it Zion, and then wants to build the tabernacle there and have the presence of God there. So he brings the Ark of the Covenant in. As he brings the Ark of the Covenant in, he does it in an incorrect manner. The ox stumbles. A man named Uzzah is killed. As a result, David cries out to God. God said, "You need to do it the right way." The priest instruct him in the correct way. He has it carried by the priests, and he brings it into Jerusalem. It's a great celebration, and all things seem to be going well. God responded to David because David said, I want to build you a house, Lord. And God said, you're not permitted to. He allowed Nathan the prophet to give him the bad news. You're not permitted to build me a house, but I'm going to build you a house. And your house is going to be an everlasting house. It's going to be an eternal house. And from one of your descendants, there's going to be one who's going to sit on the throne, and they're going to sit on an eternal throne, and they're going to rule the nation of Israel forever, which is a great promise, not just to David, but a promise to the nation of Israel, arguably to the whole world. One day, Jesus is going to sit on a throne when all things will be settled. This is great and glorious because Saul started out well and finished poorly. David started out well, but is not going to finish terribly well. We find that in chapter 6 and then chapter 7, we have the covenant God made with David called the Davidic covenant. That's the covenant we just mentioned. And then shortly after that, David now sees this woman named Bathsheba. She's a married woman. He sees her. He's in a place he shouldn't be, looking at a place he shouldn't look, and he takes her. When he took her, he then sleeps with her, and she is now with child, his child. So what does he do? He tries to get her husband back so that maybe he can be deceived. When the deception doesn't work, he then has her husband executed. It's a terrible event. And God forgives him. David cries out to God for forgiveness. God forgives him, but there are still consequences for his actions. The consequences are these. One is he's going to lose the child that Bathsheba is carrying. And that child, about 1 year old, dies. And it's a terrible loss. The second thing that we find is David's other children. He has a child, a daughter named Tamar, a son named Amnon, and a son named Absalom. Now, Absalom and Tamar are closely related. Amnon is a half-brother, and when you find that Amnon wants to sleep with his half-sister. This is not good, it's not permitted, but he does it anyway, and he takes her. And he creates a very bad environment that cannot go unpunished. David does not punish him, but her brother Absalom does punish him and kills him. And as a result, David is harsh in his response to Absalom. Absalom is forced to flee and run for his life. While he flees, because of the bad decisions David has made, even his counselors, advisors, and some of the priests who are good priests, they turn on him. And they embrace Absalom and say, you should be the rightful king. And they move to support him in overthrowing David as king. The book comes to a conclusion about the time that Absalom is killed. And Absalom dies, and David then mourns again. He mourns the loss of now his son. The decisions that are then made, the last chapters of the book, kind of sum up like this. There's now not clarity as to who should take over the throne. David is getting way up there in years. He has promised his son Solomon. God knows that Solomon is the one that's supposed to be king. Solomon is going to build the temple. David has made all the preparations for the temple. So he then says to Solomon, you're going to be the king. Absalom is not. The fight ensues. Absalom is killed, and Solomon is made the king. The last 4 chapters of the book are kind of a summary. And they're poetic in some areas and they're instructive in others. But I'll put them in 2 categories. One is David looking back at himself, and then he looks forward with a future hope. When he looks back at himself about chapter 23, you read this. This is the man God chose to be king. I, David, the son of Jesse. And it begins with, I know who I am. I'm just a shepherd boy, and God chose to use me and put me in this position. So all the glory he wants to go to God, even in that last poem. The second thing he does is this is not in chronological order, but is an event that God wants recorded last, is David sins and he starts numbering the people. When he numbers the people, he was commanded never to do that, but he did it anyway. And as a result of it, God judged the nation of Israel and sent this plague after them, and they were dying. And David cried out to God and said, please, they're not the ones that sinned. I'm the one that sinned. If there's any punishment, it should be on me. And God allowed David to offer a sacrifice on his own behalf and on behalf of the nation of Israel. So David purchases a piece of ground called the threshing floor of Aruna. That threshing floor of Aruna is on Mount Moriah. It is a place that is going to be of grand future hope. And he then offers a sacrifice there. That threshing floor, that field, is the place where Jesus Christ would eventually give his life. It's a place where he will be sacrificed. So, as David is a representative of offering the sacrifice on behalf of the nation of Israel, God the Father is going to offer his own son on the same little patch of real estate, not just to pay for the penalty for the sin of Israel, but for the sin of the whole world. So this is the glorious, magnificent hope, and that's presented at the end of this book. So it began with hope in the first chapters of 1 Samuel, with Hannah crying out to God for deliverance and presenting a Samuel, and it ends with the deliverance by God answering with the true deliverer, Jesus Christ the Messiah. Thank you for staying with us. May God richly bless you as you study his word.